Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today we have two dogs in the room, and we're going to see if they behave. So I'll give you a little tour. We've got over there on that side, we've got Autumn. Say hi. There she is, close up. And then Boris, you cannot see him right now. He's going through the toy basket. And if you happen to be looking at the video for this episode, you may notice that Rachel has a line across her head where her hair was colored today. And that's okay. The show must go on. I know it looks nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll let you know who my hairstylist is if you ping me on the side. Okay. So what's the topic today? Well, the topic is doing a fearless moral inventory and why it's important and how this process has impacted my recovery. I do have to say, yesterday, the reason why I did not record was because I felt absolutely terrible. So I still am getting used to being different. And we went over to a family member's house, and I forgot that I cannot act like normal people. And so the young child was running around, and I was trying to talk to everybody, and I get excited. That's me. That's my personality. And I all of a sudden just felt terribly, terribly nauseous and had to lay down, had a headache. And so I have pretty much felt that way since. And, but I did go get my hair done, and I sat down in a chair and I was like, I'm really sorry. I feel absolutely terrible. And, I just wanted her to know she's a talker, my hairstylist. I love it. I love that about her. But, I was not going to be able to enthusiastically respond to her stories. So I needed to tell her that I need to take a drink. Hold on one second. Coca-Cola. Okay. Doing a fearless moral inventory. Okay. So when I first started sobriety, I was scared. I think it was fear and pride that kept me from looking at what was really going on in my life. I was afraid of having to confront anybody. And I was also didn't want to be wrong, you know? And so as long as I kept drinking and didn't look in the mirror, I could keep doing whatever I wanted to do. I did not think I wasn't a nice person. I thought I was a nice person. I didn't think that I was hurting anyone. And I lived in this bubble that I had created for myself for years. And I had no idea what I was doing to myself and to the people around me. I didn't drink and get all nasty with people. I actually, when I would drink, there was like a party going on in my head, and I was the only one showing up, you know? I had the best time when I was drinking. But I was the only one I was having fun with. And I was convinced that my actions weren't impacting anybody. It was just me. And it wasn't until I began this journey of sobriety, you know, living sober, not just putting down the drink, but living sober, that I was able to start seeing the truth of how my behavior was impacting other people. So as this fog lifted, I started to notice how uncomfortable I was in my own skin and how I had really looked the other way when it came to real responsibility, really acting like a grown-up. And I don't think that I was selfish in the way that I didn't care about other people. It was just that I was selfish in the way that I felt as though I needed alcohol in my body in order to function. So I was hyper focused on putting that alcohol in there. It was almost like feeling medically necessary. Well, it was medically necessary towards the end because without alcohol, I ended up being on a walker in the detox facility. But this mindset of needing alcohol in my body, it started being an emotional dependence. And then over time, later on towards the end, it became a physical dependence. And I think it was a physical dependence much sooner than I realized it was. But this requirement to have alcohol in my body and my life began to revolve around it to the point where, like, I remember when my son was young and he was playing baseball, not because he wanted to, but he was on a baseball team, and I remember going to watch the baseball game. This was long before I got sober. This is when he was still little. And I remember putting wine in a water bottle so that I could sit in the stands and watch him play baseball. um, and during that time, I think he was probably like 5 or 6, something like that. And I remember feeling like, not that I needed it, but just that I wanted it. And I was a little ashamed that I was going to do it, but it wasn't questionable as to whether I was going to bring the wine with me. It was just, is anybody going to know? And then I had a couple sips and then I didn't care if anybody knew. Yeah. And I wonder I wonder how many people in my life that I crossed paths with at these kids' events and all of these things that people smelt wine on me. I wonder. I have no idea. Um, but as I got sober, so switching gears, I got sober, and this uncomfortableness that I felt, the more I started like interacting with people and living and having relationships as a sober person, I started to see, not wanting to admit, but starting to see how stubborn I was and how, even though I was sober, I still wanted to hold on to that behavior. Lots of those behaviors that were ways that I avoided things. I avoided things that were uncomfortable. And it was really about refusing. I was stubborn, refusing to change. I refused to admit that I was wrong ever. And it was all really a defense mechanism to keep from facing my own flaws and keep from just dealing with life like an adult. Um, as I spent several years being sober, I mean, it took several years to see that I don't have to inject myself in other people's lives. Like if people are doing things the way that I wouldn't do them, doesn't mean that I have to tell them. And it also doesn't mean that I have to tell other people around us that, did you see them do that? I think that they are this or that because they do that. Like, it's none of my business how people are living their lives. You know, that phrase, live and let live, really became something that I finally understood what it meant. And it it was that's just one of the many things that I learned how to let go of, my need to control people, places, and things. And that I needed to focus on my own actions and learn how to pause and respond than to react. And this again was not easy. It's taken me years and I'm still learning, and I'll be learning for the rest of my life. I really have needed to step back and look at my own behavior, because a lot of times when I'm judging somebody else, there's something wrong with me. I mean, obviously there's something wrong with me for judging, but I'm judging them because there's something in them that is like me, you know? There's something being reflected in what they're doing that I probably did the same thing. So I don't know if that makes sense, but so as part of the 12-step program, we are asked to take a thorough and honest look at ourselves. And so this is step 4. It's a personal inventory, and it starts by looking at our relationships and understanding our role in our relationships. So there's a lot of people that I had some resentments towards, and it was fascinating really to take the time to write all these people's names down. Took me a long time to actually write these things down, because when you write it, it becomes something you have to deal with. It's really it's scary. It was scary for me, and it's a step that a lot of people hesitate to do for quite some time. Some people relapse before they make the decision to start doing step 4, because it's stuff that we avoid. And so I wrote all these people's names down, and they're like, these are the people that I'm mad at. I mean, I'm simplifying this, but these are the people that I'm mad at. This is why I'm mad at them. This is what they did. And then I have to look at what my role is. And when I was done and I finally looked at my role in all of these relationships, there was one thing that was the same in every single one of them. Every single one that I wrote down on there, it was fear of abandonment. So I've mentioned that a couple times. I haven't talked about it in detail yet, and I'm sure I will in time. But that was what made me angry with all of them. And it was fear. And I had heard that before I got to step 4, that a lot of our resentments and a lot of the issues that we were drinking over was fear. And that's what mine was. Mine was fear of abandonment. So for me, recognizing this trend across all of my relationships, and it's funny because I was sitting there doing my step 4, and my husband, at the time, my boyfriend, was sitting in his recliner or on the couch next to me. Not next to me so that he could see what I was doing. I mean, God forbid he actually gets to see what I'm doing, because I was so nervous about these things. And because I was so quiet, like the fact that I do this podcast and just record all of my, experiences for whoever wants to listen is fascinating. That 8 years ago, I was afraid to say a word. I was afraid that I was going to be judged for being so screwed up and so unique and stuff. And I'm just not. And the reason why I don't care anymore, and I'll say almost anything, is because I finally lost somebody that was really close to me, really important to me. And I realized that, he's dead because he didn't get sober. And I would have done anything. I would do it all again and do anything if I could keep him from dying of alcoholism. And that's why I decided, like, well, I can do it now. I can save somebody else. If I could have said something where he would have been able to relate to me, and it could have made the difference, then I would have done it. And so I have the opportunity to do that now. And so that's what I'm doing. But this has been liberating for me. And it started with that step 4. I'm sorry in advance if my dogs start barking right now, because I think my husband just got home. So that's where I started to have to really confront my fears and my selfishness and my pride, and realize that my actions, all of my behavior and stuff, were driven by my own self-interest. Whether making my decisions were ones that benefited me, or they benefited me and everybody else. I know that I was first. Now, I wouldn't want my kids to hear this and think that, oh, you put yourself first. No, I mean, as far as, like, I would have done anything for them without drinking. It just happened to be that I could drink and do all the things, but I was putting their well-being at risk by doing both of them. I was not really putting them first and solely first. I was drinking and doing what I could while drinking. And this realization is painful. It's painful when you first come to it, and it's painful to have to think of it, like remember it, but it's the first step for real change when you're able to admit these things about yourself, these flaws, that because that's when you can start working on them. And I feel like I can be a better human being now because I was able to see that stuff and admit to it. And it makes me feel shame. Absolutely, it makes me feel shame. But I get a second chance, and it's a continuous process I'll always be learning how to do this whole human being thing, but I feel like I'm doing it as an adult now instead of a child because I don't think that I really grew up until I got sober. And that's what I hear. I hear that when you start drinking, you stop growing. And I certainly felt when I got sober that I still was trying to function like a high schooler or a college student. And now I feel like I'm a grown up, at the age of 40. Let's see, I got sober when I was 42, 50, 42. Yeah. Yeah. 42. I finally grew up. I finally became an adult at the age of, I would give me a year of being sober. So maybe 43 was when I actually became an adult. So I think this process also, as a new adult, it helped me to now be able to take responsibility for my actions today. So I still may have relationships where I'll want to, and this is the character defects part, I'll want to do the same things that I used to do when I was drinking. Either blame somebody else or um, make react to people instead of pausing and responding, that kind of thing. But I am learning always how to own up to my mistakes, how to say I'm sorry, how to say I was wrong, and how to make amends because we can, it's not about beating ourselves up and saying that we're wrong all the time and I'm, immature or anything. It's about being able to be courageous enough to make amends to somebody, to be able to say, you know, I shouldn't have treated you that way. That wasn't right. And saying, these amends don't have to be confrontations. They're just opening up the lines of communications that sometimes I just wasn't brave enough to open up. And by doing that, I improve my relationships with other people. I understand my role in my relationships. And sometimes like I'm working with my psychiatrist still to act my role, like play my role. Meaning if I miss my kids, pick up the phone and call them. If I miss my mom, pick up the phone and call her, instead of just sitting back and feeling like I've been abandoned. And again, that's where my fears all start. And they still do today. So if you are in sobriety or if you are not in sobriety, this idea of doing a fearless moral inventory, I know that it's challenging, but it really can be an essential part of getting to the next level of relationships and being honest and being humble and being willing to change. The rewards that I have received from being able to look in the mirror and let go of some of that pride and be able um, to face my flaws and not be ashamed of them. Um, it really has allowed me to transform my life and be a better daughter and a better sister and a better friend and a better wife, and a better mom, a better pet owner. Like I can be a better everything. And I just have to remember that I'm always a student and I'm never going to graduate from this lesson. It's going to continue to get better and better as long as I do the work. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode. And if you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share it with somebody you know and love. And I will talk to you tomorrow.